Hi everyone, I'm Tanya.
And I'm Jason.
And we're from
the Board Game Nook. Today we're going to be talking to you about a prototype game that's coming to Kickstarter September 4th. It's called Rogue Angels, Legacy of the Burning Suns. And it's done by Sun Tzu Games and by designer Emil Larson.
Now, as Jason mentioned, it is a prototype game. So all these components are subject to change. But today we're just going to talk about the components that we did play with, how the game kind of works, and how we felt about it.
All right, so let's get started.
Okay. Now, in this game, we are space pirates running different missions. And it's like a story-based sci-fi dungeon crawl is how I'm going to describe it. Playing this game, it was one of those things where you just kind of follow the narrative, you go through the story. Great narrative, by the way, great maps. And Jason here is going to describe to you guys exactly what the components are. He's the techie guy. I'm the one that just kind of enjoys the storyline.
So to begin, you're basically you're a ragtag band of hired guns that have all just been have all come together through happenstance, really. To start, we were given 14 characters, all fairly unique with distinct play styles, but with unique mechanisms between them. When the game is fully done and fleshed out, there should be about 16 characters, I'm told, so lots and lots of variation to create any party you want. We played the game at multiple player counts, so we played it with the 4 main characters that we were given, and then we tried it out with...
Jason and I just played it together.
With a couple of different combinations of the 2 characters, and everything seemed fairly consistent. In the game, basically, you're given a mission from your smuggling employer, and he basically tells you to do something. You land your ship, and then you play the game. Very similar to Gloomhaven, for instance.
Yeah. So with the maps themselves, I mean, you have kind of this book where it says you're on this ship, here's the layout, and you're given these little figures for enemies, of course, because that's what this board game is about, is, trying to steal their stuff on their ship, blow up their ship, hack into certain things, open doors, and of course, every single page is a completely different map. So you always feel like you're moving forward, you're never stuck on just one board game. It's always something dynamic and different. And then also this game has a really cool movement and attack, I thought, for enemies.
So the
you do the explaining. I don't do the explaining. Okay, I just play through. So this is how it works.
Actually, one of the things I really appreciated about this game was the pre-programming of the AI. Oftentimes when you're playing a dungeon crawl, you can learn and know exactly how your opponent is going to perform each turn. So it makes it very easy to puzzle it out. In Rogue Angels, you're given quite a large set of AI programming cards. And on each turn, it's going to flow from top to bottom. So you're going to know roughly how many enemies are going to act each round. And you're going to have an idea of the personality type. For instance, a chaotic attack, automated defense. But you're not going to know exactly what that means. And then further, each one will act slightly differently. So, for instance, on this card, it's going to start with, it's going to move towards the nearest player, followed by attacking all players. And then the next guy to act will move towards the most distant player and then launch a grenade. So completely different behavior between the 2 personalities on the board, or enemies on the board. The other thing that's really good is at the top here, it's a modifier. So in case something occurs, for instance, if an enemy was damaged last turn, the enemy will then also, or instead of, do the bottom row. So it adds even more variation.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I might be aging myself here, but remember the choose your own adventure story games? It's very much the same in this one. So yes, you're trying to be tactical and you're trying to as a team work together to complete the mission. But at the same time, you have choices to make. You have decisions to make, and it changes the story. You go yes or you go no, and it will change what map you're on, what enemies you're fighting, where you go and what you do. So that in itself changes the dynamic completely, in the sense that you're not sure if you made the right decision, but you're stuck with it now, and that's where you're going with it. With the characters themselves, they also have their own characteristics that allow them to be a little bit more techie, a little bit more of like, run up behind and stab someone, or just obliterate a lot of people at one. You got, what are those technical things? You have like a really heavy armored guy that can kill lots of things. You can have
a brawler.
That's what I'm talking about.
Or a tank that absorbs damage. An assassin that's meant for killing. I played an Eradicator mostly, and he had a very unique mechanism where he would hurt himself to have more actions in a turn. Mm-hmm. So very unique, and the characters, they give you a little bit of direction on how you should play them, but that doesn't mean you need to play them in that style. The Eradicator, for instance, again, the one I'm most familiar with, he was basically used for battles and war, and so he was very aggressive. But through our playthroughs, mine turned out to be a little more pacifist. Just due to the nature of our crew and the decisions we were forced to make, and the role I was sort of thrust into. So you can define your playstyle based on the character, or you can use your playstyle to define how you play the character. It's quite good in that regard.
Now, the other thing that we definitely should talk about for how this game dynamic works is they're each given their stack of cards of what they can do in their hand. And in that sense, it was very interesting because when you put down a card, it's kind of stuck there for a couple turns. It all kind of shifts down. So you have to pay attention to what you're doing and what you think you want to do in the moment. And then, a few turns later, if you're kind of screwed, you needed to move, but you moved before, so now you got to shoot. You have to deal with those cards. Is there a technical term for what?
It's hand management, I guess, would be the mechanism used there, because you do start with all your cards in place. You have 7 or so. You do play them down and then realize that there's a delay. You won't be able to play them again for a certain amount of turns. Now, you can speed up the process by resting and get cards back in your hand quicker, but each scenario is on a time limit, so you have very few turns to actually act to accomplish your goal. So it's a
price limit, yeah.
Yeah.
And the dice does help. So you play your cards and then you roll 1 or 2 die or no die, and it will help you with increasing your stats or with movement. And you can, if you have it, reuse it to re-roll that die because you desperately needed to get the hell out of a place. But sometimes the dice just doesn't really work, and that's just the way life is. So it's great in the sense that you had direction, you had a place to go, you felt like you had a lot of choices, you weren't kind of clotheslining yourself, but at the same time, there's always tension there with the die that you're aiming for something. Hopefully you get it, sometimes you don't. And, you just kind of deal with the consequences as it comes. And yeah, is that all about the game? Is that pretty much everything we needed to cover?
The other thing is, though it is a campaign game, it is also legacy. It is a legacy game, which means that as you go along, you will be altering the game state in such a manner that going forward, it's different. So your characters will grow based on your decisions. Your standing with certain factions in the game, you're going to alter it.
Your personality will, you'll build your character into what it did, and friends or enemies, by the choices you made, you will make friends and enemies later on down the road, which is very exciting because you don't really know what's coming, but prices will be paid for the consequences of your actions. And it's in that sense, it is very nice when you're making those decisions that your personality can alter throughout the game, but also if all else fails and you fail that mission and bad things go down, you get scars on your character. It's not a bad thing. I mean, it's a bad thing. Don't get me wrong, but it builds your character even more when that happens, because you're pulling mission and you screwed up and you messed up your cards and it didn't go your way, luck didn't go your way, and you got caught in the crossfire. You got left on the ship and everyone ditched you, or you killed someone you probably shouldn't have. Those scars come back to your character, which is also, I thought, kind of a nice little thing for a legacy game, because it's not just the same old boring, or you're in charge of building those stats on your character. It's some things you have control of, some things you don't.
And just to further that, so like Tanya was saying, you will fill in these personality bubbles, and during the mission they give you added boosts that you can put towards the cards that you're playing. Your hand also changes throughout the course of the campaign, in that there'll be stickers that you can put on top that increase it. So for instance, maybe you only have one attack to start or one interact action per card. You can put stickers on as you go to increase the benefits of each card. And as a player, you get to decide which cards you use most often, which ones you're not necessarily using, and you can really enhance your deck. So you're not culling your deck or pulling cards out, but you will be adding them in and altering the ones that you currently have. So your deck will change over time and become better, and also, again, suit your play style more as a player as you go along. So if you do more killing, you'll probably upgrade those cards, or if you're more of the tech guy, you'll be enhancing your tech cards. And there's no one right way to play it either. We did a few missions guns a-blazing, and we did a few missions a little more stealth. We
tried to be stealth with me on your team.
Yeah, it was very challenging. It was a challenging thing.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that all the components of the board game, mainly.
Yeah, those are the main components.
Forgive us if we've forgotten a few things, but yeah, I think we got the base of how this game works and most of the components, and then we're just going to talk about next how we felt about the game, how it works, just kind of get into the meat and potatoes of it all. So we'll be right back. Now, we played this game quite a bit over a couple months. We did play with 4-player and we played it with 2-player. And I have to say there's quite a lot of content that you can use in this game. This is just the first book. There's 3 of them that you can go through. And
it's an insane amount of content.
Yeah, absolutely. There was never a moment of, oh, look, we're almost done on the first night. No. It was nothing like that. And with 4-player, it's nice, of course, because you have 4 different characters. It's a lot more dynamic, we felt, because one person is going to be that commander while you're running through the scenario. And with 4 people, now you have a debate on what you choose for yes or no scenarios of, you have this option or you have this option. And we can vote and we can discuss and we can say our point of views of our personality types and what our own personal goals are. But at the end of the day, the commander is the one that can force this issue one way or another. We found that was much more fun.
It was much more fun at 4 players, like the debates and the discussions about what we're going to do on each mission, or the decisions that we made on how it's going to alter the story. Yeah, much better at 4.
Yeah.
And we had quite a few votes that came down to 50-50 commander makes the last call.
They had to break that tie. With 2 people, I mean, you have a commander and you have a peon, right? So we felt that
we never agreed.
We don't ever agree.
No.
That's pretty much what it ended up being. Was there was not really a debate. It's like, well, I want to do this. Well, I want to do that. Well, I'm the commander this time, so let's just do that. So it was still fun, for sure. We played
definitely.
The mission. The puzzle was very different on those levels. With 2 people, you only have 2 people. So to complete this mission, you have different enemies that you have to fight. It changes that dynamic as to how many people are playing. But you do have to strategize a little bit more, and the puzzle's just different because one person has to do one thing, this person has to do the other, while you're trying to work together while stuff's going down on the ship. It's either going to blow up, or people are coming for you, or you got to sneak in. With 4 people, we got to segregate and say, okay, this team, go do this, we're going to do this, or everyone's swarming in, so we could kind of team up together and have that work.
Well, we found we found that with 4 players, we had more strategic options on what we could do and how we were going to go about solving each puzzle. Especially because we had different cards, which also lent to different strategies. With 2 players, it was very much more cut and dry.
Yeah.
Like we were like, okay, like this person has to do this, and this person has to do that, and it was just okay. Let's go. So at 4 players, yeah, it was more fun strategically and tactically, I think. But at 2 players, it also played a lot faster.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was just like bam, bing, bam, boom. You're done. You're going through those missions. We were kind of filing through them as we went.
And the game does a great job of scaling between 2 and 4 players. We didn't play it at 3, but it does have a mode for 3 players as well, which might be the sweet spot. I'm not sure, because then you get the debates, but you'd always have a odd number.
Yeah. It was nice that this legacy game, I found, without playing other legacy games, that you all have to commit to that time, and you all have to do it, and you all have to move forward. With this game, it gives you that leniency that if one person can't make it, and this legacy game will last you years if you're playing once a week. It was okay. It just supplemented. It's like, well, these 3 pirates that are in the spaceship are going to go off, and the other guy, he's just staying off and getting drunk at the bar somewhere. So it really lent that kind of...
it was great for player drop in and drop out. Though the game doesn't explicitly state that that's what it does, it could very easily be drop in, drop out. One player could even play a mission by himself controlling 2 characters, which is probably not as much fun, but it could be done. And then with the, like Tony was saying, drop in, drop out. Sometimes you're not going to have everybody, and if you're really invested in the story, which we were, it was great to just continue it along. And then we just sort of gave the missing players their bonuses.
Yeah.
Or made the decisions for them, or asked them outside of game just to verify what they would have chosen and that sort of thing, so that the characters all progress roughly the same amount.
Thematically. And of course this game, you're playing, it's a story-based board game. So theme is important here, and that's where, when it comes into rules and what thematically should happen, we do have a little bit to say on that, in the sense that, stuff comes up, especially with 4 players, with movement. It's very tricky, right? Like
well, there were... The rule book, firstly, is it's a fair size rule book. It's roughly 48 pages, so it's a fair size rule book, is what I'm saying. And so there's a lot of diagrams, and there's a lot of pictures and icons and terminology, and so it's a tough game to learn, and there's a lot of things to keep track of. And with 2 players, it's a lot easier to manage. There are a lot less edge case scenarios on how the cards move or how the enemies move.
But you needed Jason to be the one that has read this rule book front and back. He knows it. He understands all of those little niggly rules that'll just happen in the background naturally. He can just kind of move it along as we are going through this mission together. And that's where you have this beautiful partnership between the 4 of us are thematically in this scenario. We're on a spaceship. We're trying to go through this mission. And, if a rule comes up with movement, or what an enemy is going to do, where they're going to come in, how we can move through the ship, Jason was the one to be like, okay, you can't do this. You can do this. We can do this. This is a door and it does not open. It's one of those things that if you have one person that knows the rules really, really well, the game will flow so much better than you being like, oh, we're going to run it. Oh, wait, what's the rule for this? Okay, yeah, let's do that. Oh, let's do this. Oh, wait, how does this person move? And so it's just nice to not have that conversation. Somebody knows it, they just do it, and it flows a lot nicer thematically that way.
And there were a lot of times where things cropped up again, especially at 4 players, where scenarios that were impossible to occur at 2-player count occurred at 4 players, and especially with enemy movement, which I'm sorry, that enemy movement was very tricky to wrap my head around. And I know it had priorities, like enemies do A, then they do B, and that's it. However, that being said, a lot of times there was a lot of gray area, and especially for a thematic game, you want to keep the game flow going. You want everybody invested in the story and the decisions, not so much the rules. And though this is a puzzle game, and you can puzzle it out, and you can think about it, and you can figure it out at the start, there's something to be said about just enjoying the story as you go.
Yeah, exactly. And what we ended up doing really was we played it thematically, and if we kind of jarred up against a rule, especially with enemy movement, where the rules state as written, this enemy is just going to be head face walking into a door again and again and again, and we're 4 spaces away. The rules as written, Jason had it, and then it was like, well, we have a decision to make here thematically. What would this enemy do? Would they just run into a wall again and again and again, or would they see us and then go that way? And so we just kind of, we worked it out that rules as written, fair enough, but thematically, the rule didn't really pan out. We're going to go this way and make the enemy move in a direction that it normally wouldn't have gone. And we found that helped quite a bit more to keep it more fun and less technical, getting kind of bogged down by
rules. And at the end of the day, it's a co-op game. Like, you're here to have fun. So you can do whatever. If you want to play the games exactly rules as written, that's great. Yeah. And if you want to research each rule just to make sure you're doing it correctly, that's great too.
Yeah, please do, because it does bug Jason when we
do yes. So what we did was, if we came to something we didn't exactly know what to do in the moment, we made a judgment call based on theme. And then afterwards, I reviewed the rules, checked examples, and then going forward, I knew exactly how it would interact. But it just kept the flow going much nicer.
And it is co-op. Like, you can puzzle out every single one of these scenarios and just be like, okay, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. But when something happens where, you make this decision and then you have to pay those consequences, we just suggest, like, don't.
Well, you don't recon your moves.
Don't recon.
Like, we had the most fun when we made mistakes.
Yes.
And there were some pretty bad mistakes and glaring, just pure misplays. Oops.
Yeah. I may or may not have ditched him entirely, and then the ship was on fire. So, that happened, for sure. Did Jason get scars that day? Yes, he did.
Scars are all a part of the game, and some characters even benefit from getting them. So as you get scars, you become more powerful.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's one of those things that builds your character a little bit better. We were kind of like, that went
we
badly.
Were terrified.
We can recon this, 3 steps back, and then that wouldn't happen. But it was like, well, we didn't know it at the time, and that's the way we have to go. And then we got our scars, and it wasn't that bad. It was thematically hilarious. His character was very mad that we left him behind. And we all paid the consequences, and that was great. So yeah, just don't recon anything. Just go thematic. Try to play by the rules, and then kind of go from there. And as we were playing this game, I personally don't have anything bad to say about this game, mainly because I don't have to worry about the rules, and I'm very much like story based. So do I really care about crazy sci-fi stuff? Not really, but this did grab my attention for sure. I was very happy to play just like this ragtag crew of misfits that, someone's just this assassin and someone's this person that's trying to get revenge, and you're working together, but you're really just paid mercenaries to go and do a job together. So sometimes you might be cutthroat and cut your friends out. Sometimes you might be very loyal to them, and it just kind of, everyone has these dynamic things in space as you're trying to steal other people's stuff and get your own way. So I found this game was very enjoyable to follow a story that it went forward. It was just from like one scene to another of a movie or a video game, and we weren't bogged down by the rules. Our friend, she did mention in the beginning, especially the first couple missions, they're kind of the same.
Yeah, you have a few little decisions to make, but even though you're customizing your character just slightly, but you don't have any new cards or anything like that, and you don't have any abilities, and you are learning the game. So
it felt like you're walking through a tutorial. Nothing bad is really going to happen to you. No crazy changes are going to happen to you. Just kind of the first mission, the second mission are almost the same. It's like, okay, here's what we're going to play on, and get your movement. Here's enemies. How do you attack the enemies? How do you get through the door? How do you leave?
So it was good in the sense that it sort of trained you as you were going how to play the game. So because it introduced each concept one after the other, which is great. But
she found it just like a little
boring,
a little long.
Yeah, because it was I think it was the first 3 missions that you play through before you start introducing the new cards and really starting to embrace the character that you're playing.
Now I will say this: the 4 of us, we are pretty hardcore gamers. Okay, we play board games 2-3 times a week, and we've been playing for years. So for us, we didn't necessarily need that long of a tutorial kind of start.
I don't know. I felt it helpful. I felt it helpful to. It was a nice way to introduce the rules. Yeah. The rulebook suggested that you read as you go, which I didn't like that at all. I read the whole rulebook because at the end there's sort of an appendices where it tells you all these extra rules if this scenario crops up. But it was it was jarring. So I made sure I read all the things in the appendices so that I could know, oh, okay, yes, I've seen that there. I can just quickly reference it and continue the flow. So again, if you have someone guiding the game, it's perfect because then they know all the rules and everyone else can learn the rules as you go. And the rules aren't bad. Like everything seems to fit nicely.
Absolutely. I felt that for sure. Like we have played a couple legacy games where you're just banging your head against the wall when it comes to these rules. They're so disjointed. They don't make any sense. This one, not at all. It was very much like, oh, we're going to do this. Let's learn the niggly movement, how my cards work, what they do. Remember how I can move, how I can hit. And then once you got it down, you're like, and we're moving forward. This is great. Now I understand how the components work, and the rules flowed very well, so that even as we were changing entire locations and changing, adding weapons and different enemies, it was like, we have the base here, and now we can advance and have more fun with it. So, I mean, for the game itself, I guess at the end of this review, how did we like Rogue Angels, Legacy of the Burning Suns? How'd you like it? So, Jason, you go first.
Okay, so I guess I'll just say what I really liked about the game. First, this is such a great concept, the programmable AI. And one thing that we forgot to mention was if it has 2 sides. It's yellow and red. So on your turn, red will act, and then on the subsequent turn, yellow will act. It makes it even more difficult to predict what enemies are going to do because you can't just look at the card to see. And further, it gives you strategic options to either kill off all the yellow, kill off all the red, or keep some alive just so that they act in sequence. Just a really fun way of doing AI programming. So I love that concept. Something else that I loved was the card play and how you get wounded. So I know I'm bringing in something new, but basically you have 4 slots down here, and that's where you play your cards. And they move down so you can play them again, etc. But when you get hit, the wound takes a spot, one of these 4 spots. And if you ever can't place a wounded card, your character becomes unconscious, which then they'll need to be healed. But the interesting mechanism within that card play is that if a wound goes on top of one of your character cards, your character card comes back into hand. So if you shot your gun off too early or you really need to use it again, if you get hit, it can give you that opportunity to play again. It's just a really fun way of making punishment fun, I guess. You're being punished, but it's not necessarily always super bad. It could be the thing that saves you. Very
interesting dynamic. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm wounded. I have 5 wounds and I only have 6 health. It was very different that way. We really did enjoy that.
And I guess the final thing that I want to say mostly is the components. We played it with standees. Now the Kickstarter is going to have miniatures for the characters at least, and I think I preferred it with the standees. Like I lost no thematic value. It was super fun. So I can only imagine if you bring in miniatures, immerse you even more possibly, but totally unnecessary. This game stands on its own. It doesn't need the components to shine.
That's right. We had a great time just, because you are changing different enemies. So you're just putting these little paper
The standees
on there and moving them as needed. And it was just, I don't know, fast, efficient, no big deal. Just didn't bog down the game at all. But you still, there's pictures of them, right? So you know who your character is, who the enemies are. That guy's got a big gun in the picture. So it's still, it worked out really, really well. The miniatures aren't necessarily needed, but it's going to be great. I do love having miniatures on the board, so I'm excited to see that.
Yeah. So what did you think then?
Well, of course, I'm a lot less techie about rules and whatnot. So really, for my own personal opinion, I adored this game. I don't know what to say about it. It just, you sit down for a good time and you just go through this story and you're just a bunch of misfits that are making your own decisions, trying to work together, stealing stuff, shooting things. It's just my jam. I don't know. I really enjoyed this game. I didn't feel like the rule games, the game rules got in the way. And some board games, especially legacy games, is just like mind-boggling about, okay, if I roll here and I have that and this is my stat and I can do this and that. And it was not like that at all. You're having fun with your friends and you don't have to worry too much about the grind of it all and trying to remember last week where you ended up. It was just, okay, we're starting a new mission, we're on here, and this is where we go at it. So I found it very, very enjoyable. The components were great, even in prototype state. And the story, the decisions you have to make and the commentary that happens in the actual rule book and in the mission log and then with your friends, fantastic. I had a good time playing it. So yeah, I guess that's our review for Rogue Angels.
I think we'll continue playing it.
Yeah, I'm excited for it when it comes out.
And
he's gonna get it.
Yeah, I'm gonna end up with a full copy. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where our story goes, and possibly even playing it solo on my own, just to test out some of the other characters.
Yeah, nothing but choices with this game, and that's always fantastic.
So a lot of replayability, I think. Yeah, so I'm excited for the game. I think it's well done. So that's our review of Rogue Angels. I hope you guys liked it.
Yeah, we hope you guys did really like it. We tried our best. So until next time, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Hi everyone, I'm Tanya from Board Game Nook. Please like and subscribe on Facebook or YouTube, or you can check out our website at boardgamenook.com. If you're in the Edmonton area, we run a board game rental store, so please check that out. Have a great day. Bye for now.